Hello, I'm Anthony. Today I want to take a look at the idea of performance in the music that we write, and I'm going to do it from the perspective of a piano backing line that I've written for a piece of music that I'm in the process of composing. Now, I'm not an accomplished pianist at all. Even if I'm just playing the white keys, it's very difficult for me to actually play something in time accurately. So very often I'll use all of the tools in Cubase to basically input the notes manually. This is what I did with this particular piece of music, and at one stage I was tempted to just basically leave it as is. But I decided I wanted to impart more of me into this piece of music. I actually wanted to perform the piano backing line. Now, even though it's a pretty simple backing line, it's still fairly tricky to get this stuff to sound good. The first thing that I'm going to do is play a short section of this music. I'll play 4 bars worth of it. And what you're going to hear in this first instance is the MIDI input version of the piano backing line. This is what it sounds like. So what we've got here is a hybrid method of input. Some of these notes I've drawn in manually, some of them I've got the thing going on loop and I'll basically play in merge mode to get the chords in. They're all hard quantized, so every one of these notes has a start position of 0, and the reason why you see some of the lengths being variable is because some of them were played in manually and some of them were input. These notes here, for instance, will have been cut with a pair of scissors, so I've just played one single note and then just cut where I wanted the separation of notes to be. Now, it sounds fine, and once the rest of the music is layered on top, this piano kind of sinks into the background, and you could very easily, and I very often do, get away with leaving it at this stage. But I wasn't satisfied with that. In this case, what I decided to do was basically retrospectively learn this piano part and play it in as naturally as I could. What you're going to hear in this second currently muted piano part is that performance played by me. So I'll get the thing going again. I'll let you hear the original version once more to give you some real context, and then I'll flip the mute state of these two parts and you can compare and contrast. So two things happened there. Firstly, the notes became far less rigid, far less structured. Because these notes were played in naturally, we have non-zero start positions. The second thing that you'll note is that they're not actually the same piano part, because when I came to play it, I realised that I didn't want this like hard chord kind of business. When I've come to actually play it live, I've discovered that I actually want the majority of the chord to ring, and I've only changed one note, so I'm basically playing C major 7, and then I'm just raising the B, which gives a far more gentle impact. I only learned that when I actually came to perform the thing. I suppose this is as good a time as any actually to mention the foot pedal as well. So I basically can't play with the sustain pedal as well. I'm simply not a good enough keyboard player to get my hands and my feet to synchronize properly. It's very easy, however, to add sustain after the fact, and so I'll record the part once just naturally on the keyboard and then go along in merge mode later. So if you set your states to merge and mix, then you can record the sustain pedal in after the fact, and it's then very easy to edit them manually in the control lane exactly where you want them to be. Now, you don't technically need to use a sustain pedal. You could manually edit all of the MIDI lengths of the notes, and it's basically going to give you exactly the same effect. But with the better plugins, and this is an instance of Omnisphere here, you can actually get sustain pedal noise imparted into the sound, so it does actually have a genuine impact on the sound as well. There were a few Cubase edits that I added to the performance just to kind of neaten it up a little bit. The first one is that I set a velocity ceiling of 50, so there's no note in this piece. If I zoom out far enough, you'll see that there are several notes capped off at the same level. I played pretty consistently, and I had a quite comfortable feeling with, you know, the volumes of the notes that I wanted to articulate. But every now and again, something would just push very slightly beyond this ceiling that I wanted it to be, and so I used the logical editor, and here's my simple velocity ceiling preset. Anything bigger than 50 will be set to exactly 50. I also executed a very gentle soft quantize. You can see that I've got the soft Q set to 50%. The reason for that is that this is basically the anchor of the piece, so I want it to be pretty accurate, but I don't want it to be absolutely on the measure. And just pulling things in with the 50% soft Q, more often than not, gives me that perfect balance, exactly what I'm aiming for. Now, if you ever soft quantize a piece of music where you've got notes very close together, you need to make sure that you don't inadvertently overlap them. If one of the notes gets moved forward a little bit and you have two piano notes that are overlapped, then the second one won't sound. So if you're going to quantize something like a piano where that's going to be the case, you're going to need to apply a second process called delete overlaps mono. This is the function here. Basically, let's do one manually. If I extend this F to the point where those two notes are now overlapping, see? And then delete overlaps mono, it truncates that overlap. I think the most valuable takeaway for me, though, was that in learning these parts and in playing them naturally, I think the piece of music fundamentally improved. Here's another example to demonstrate that much more organic feeling that you get with the naturally played performance. And listen to the difference between the two parts. We're going to start off again with the MIDI input version, and then we'll switch to the acoustic version and hear how much more fluid the new performance is, because as I've been kind of relearning the chord structure and what I wanted to happen, I realised that I wanted it to be much more simple than the MIDI notes that had originally been input. Once again, so many notes, just like in the first phrase, so many notes now have been elongated that were originally played separately, and the whole thing has a much more natural feeling to it. I'll actually bring in the strings now so that you can hear a little section of this song as it currently stands. At this point in the piece, I've got a viola and a cello going. Now, I've got absolutely no choice. I don't own either a viola or a cello, so I'm just going to have to really work at trying to get those sounding as naturally as possible. But here's that piano backing part in its proper full context. Just about to kick into the violins there. It's an interesting dilemma that we face as a species now that computers are basically able to not only help us to write the music, but actually write the stuff for us. What are we doing it for? I used to hold the opinion that it really didn't matter how the music was recorded, it was only the end product that mattered. I'm shifting away from that perspective these days. I think the actual construction of the piece of music is important. I think having that quite literally hands-on approach to recording the thing really helps you to connect with it emotionally. So over the course of the next few years, as computers basically get to the stage where they can write great music for us, we need to decide as composers, as people who write our own music, what role we have to play in that. And I don't think I've given sufficient respect to that part of the process in the past, and it's something that I intend to directly address. I'm going to try to remember that I actively enjoyed performing this piece of music and learning the notes that I'd input on a MIDI screen and learning how to play them. That means I'm going to want to do it again, and fortunately, it means that I'm also enjoying the end product more than I would have done had I just left it in MIDI form. Right, time to get down off my soapbox. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please hit like if you did. I'll see you again. Thanks a lot.